Hi love bugs! Today the UPS man came to my apartment and he dropped off not one but two packages from Lorac. Their PR company sent me some things, including the lip color I'm wearing, by the way, which is, where in the world are you? The Lorac Pro Rose Brown Matte Lip Color. I love this. They sent me so much nice stuff and I'm so grateful, but even more than that, I was most excited because I bought the Lorac Mega Pro palette. So it was a good Lorac day all around, but today I really want to focus on this and tell you why you may or may not need it in your life. I was really surprised by this, and I will say it is quite similar to the other Lorac Pro palettes in the sense that you have the matte colors up here on the top. We have a total of 16 matte colors, 16 shimmers, and only 4 repeats, I think, all of which are from Lorac Pro 1. And they're very, very basic colors that if you were anything like me, one of them is cream, which I went through within a couple of months. So it's a really cool palette and I wanted to review it for you. Please know that these are my opinions, and if you got the palette, you might feel totally differently. There are a lot of critics of this one. There are a lot of people who love it, and I'm just here to tell you how I feel. I used it on the eyes for the first time today, and I will happily admit that especially some of the matte colors are a little bit powdery. I noticed cream, which was in the Lorac 1 Pro palette, was very, very true to the way that they have been in that palette. Lorac sent me Pro 2 today, and I have not even delved into it. But it seems that this palette has more or less the consistency of the eyeshadows in Pro 2 in the sense that they are really, really, really loosely packed. Some of them are powdery. Now, I don't think that they're so powdery to the point where it's going to annoy the living crap out of you. I got zero fallout today, even when I was working with a matte black, and I barely tapped it off. I got no fallout whatsoever. So that is something to note. I'd also like to say that I think that these perform better on eyes than they do in swatches, and a lot of palettes really are like that. But I'm going to swatch all of them for you. We'll start with the top row. We have the color Cream, which is a really, really neutral highlight color, especially for people with lighter skin. Then we have Fawn, which is more of a peach matte shade. We have Camel, which is a light orangey brown and a perfect blending color for the crease. That is what I used all over my crease today. In the more defined crease area, I used the color Sepia, which is slightly darker than Camel, but still a very orangey matte brown. So let's swatch these first 4 colors. So here is Cream, and as you can see, it's just a very light highlight shade. Then we have the color Fawn, a little bit peachy. Here is Camel, and Sepia. And you can see Sepia is coming off as quite powdery in the swatch. But again, when I applied it today, I got no fallout on the eyes or anything like that, and it was just a matter of being kind of careful, tapping off, but I didn't have to go crazy with it. Next we have Dusty Plum, which is kind of a lighter mauvey plum shade. We have Orchid, which is a cool toned pink. Then we have Mulberry, which is obviously just a matte kind of pinky maroon. And then finally we have Espresso, which is a repeat color. So first we have the color Dusty Plum, really, really beautiful, quite sheer on that. Orchid, Mulberry, Espresso. Next we have White, which is a true matte white color. Nothing really special about it. We have Khaki, which is kind of a little bit more cool tone. I think a lot of people said that this palette was really, really, really warm tone, but that's more of a like cool tone mauve, light brown, mauve, mauve. My friend Danny always says mauve, so I get really confused when I say it. I don't even know what the word is anymore. We have Brown, which is just brown, really a little bit warmer as opposed to being more neutral or cool. And then lastly we have Stone, which is kind of a cool grayish brown. White, Khaki, Brown, and Stone. We have Lilac, which is a very kind of cool light purple color. When I think of lilac, I really don't think of this shade, if you want to know the truth. I haven't swatched this yet, so I don't know how it'll turn out. We have Wisteria, which in comparison to Dusty Plum is a little bit lighter and a teensy tiny bit more cool tone. We have Gray, which pretty self-explanatory, and Black. And you can see Black really kicked up quite a bit of dust when I worked with it earlier. So we have the color Lilac, which I don't even know if you're going to be able to see that well. In fact, it really is such a light color. I think you would have to wear primer underneath that. We have Wisteria, which I find to be quite sheer and did not really want to stay in place at all. We have the color Gray, and then we have the color Black. Those were the matte colors, so let's get into the shimmers. What I have on the inner portions of my lid today is Opal, which is going to be kind of your white gold color. It's a warm, very, very shimmery light shade. A great color, honestly, and it really brightened up my whole look. We have Sand, we have a rosy, warm gold. Then we have Copper, which I used on the outer portion of the lid today and was just beautiful. Really, the mirror is like right here so I can like look at myself and tell you how I feel. This was a nice warm color to go all over the lid. Then we have Sienna, which is a little teensy tiny bit more orange, a little bit darker than Copper. So we have Opal, just a beautiful, beautiful color. Then we have Sand, which really did not want to swatch nicely at all, but a really pretty kind of peachier shade. We have the color Copper. I really, really like Copper, by the way, and Sienna. On the second part of the row, we have Apricot, which is a kind of orangey toned peach color. We have Blush, which is truly just a pink. We have Merlot, which I quite like, and then we have Indigo, which I've seen swatches of Indigo, but if you can tell in the pan, it looks like the most beautiful, glittery, dark purple blue madness. So we have Apricot, Blush, I don't know if I'm even pointing in the right direction, Blush, and then we have Merlot, which I really love Merlot, Indigo. Indigo is beautiful, but I think you need a base under it for it to really kind of shine and show its true potential. Final row of shimmer here, we have Vanilla, which is a little bit more neutral and a little bit more pink compared to Opal, but I think it's really more of a neutral shimmery color, at least in the pan. We have Cashmere, which I quite like. It's kind of that sandy champagne color that's perfect for all over the lid. We have Smoky Topaz, which is, I wouldn't really call it cool toned. I think it leans a touch more neutral than some of the ones that I've seen. And then we have Dusty Rose, which is a touch more pinky. So I'm going to swatch these really quick. Here's Vanilla, which is a light, very beautiful shimmery color. We have Cashmere, which I quite like, just a beautiful shimmering champagne. We have Smoky Topaz. Smoky Topaz, I'm getting it together. This one swatched kind of sheer. I was a little bit surprised by that, but it does have a beautiful shimmer to it. And then I will say that Dusty Rose did not swatch very well at all. I don't think the pigmentation is the best on that. Finishing off, we have the color Granite, which is kind of a weird color. It's very, very shimmery. I would even say borderline glittery. It's more of a purpley brown shade. We have Maroon, which is going to be, in comparison to Merlot, which is up above, much more brown and a little bit lighter. We have Deep Teal, which I used on the lower lash line today, and it is just a deep teal. And then we have the color Caviar, which is a shimmering black. So we have the color Granite, and I do quite like Granite, but I will say that was a lot of powder that kicked up. We have Maroon, then Deep Teal, which honestly, I was noticing this when I used it on the lower lash line today, just kind of more of a slightly tealish dark color. It's like you can't really even tell what color it is for the most part. And then we have the shade Caviar, which honestly the shimmer is barely showing up in, so might as well be the same as black. Now, if you can see, I don't go into swatches and just jam my finger in. When I swatch, it is such a light press against the palette, and I know you wouldn't really be able to tell that, especially since I was doing it in my lap, but if you can see the amount of mess that some of these kicked up, like Wisteria, White kicked up quite a bit, the shade Fawn kicked up a little bit, they are very, very soft, and they are going to kick up product, and your palette is not going to stay pristine and pretty. And that's something to note, because it was like that with Lorac Pro 1, which was until now the only Lorac Pro palette that I tried, but not to this extent. And I'm sure by the way that I just said that, and by the way that I reacted to some of those swatches, you might think I do not like it. So far, I love it. It is not a palette where I think that you can judge it too terribly by its swatches. If you don't like that slightly softer consistency, I can understand why, because it certainly makes things messier. It also makes things so much easier to blend, and these are not the type of powdery where the color is just going to completely shear away. A few of them kind of did that on my hand. For the most part though, with the brush, from what I've seen, because I definitely noticed that the shade Camel up here. Kind of did that when I sheared it out with my finger, but when I really went ham, like blending it in the crease, hardcore, I do not take my blending lightly, it never really blended or buffed away. Something else I'd like to note is I think that it's very interesting. Lorac Pro was a lot just of neutral matte colors. I know you guys have all seen that. I'm not going to waste your time showing you those palettes. Lorac too had a few more colors, and then this one certainly has quite a few colors. Anything from jewel tones to pastels, but the coolest thing about them is they're not going to be in your face bright shades. I used deep teal right here on the lower lash line, and I gotta tell you, I don't even feel like you can tell that it's a color. Even when you're like really up close to me, you can't really even see that it's teal. It's like a dark shade, and if you're right next to me, you might be able to see that there's a touch of teal there. However, I feel that if I put a base underneath that and I really wanted to be bright in your face, it could transition to that. If you're someone who's not quite a fan of colors and you want to be, like you want to get into it, this could be extremely useful for you to dip your toe in the water, wear some things that are more wearable, some things that are barely there, and some things that you can do a lot with. You can wear them as a barely there pop of color. You can take them to the next level with a really strong base. You can get the paint pots from MAC. You could get even just the color tattoos from Maybelline. They all work the same. Also, something to note is overall this is a fairly warm palette. There's not many cool tone colors, and I think that it was actually Temptalia, I'll link her review down below, who said that there are like 4 strong cool colors in this palette. For the most part, it's warm colors or neutral colors that pull more warm than anything. I think there are some inconsistencies as well, and some shades are much more sheer than others. And for the most part, when you compare it to something like Lorac Pro, which came out and everyone was crazy about, no, I don't think that across the board the consistency is as good. But for as large as this palette is, for the price, for the amount of just color you get, I really do think it's worth the money, because you're getting so much. And for the most part, aside from like 1 or 2 that I was kind of like, this could be a little bit better, I think that the pigmentation, the blendability is really nice. If you're going to be annoyed that powder will be kicked up, definitely skip this. Definitely build your own kind of palette with something like Urban Decay or MAC, where you're going to get really great pigmented eyeshadows, but they're not going to be as soft. If it doesn't bother you, I really can't sing this palette's praises enough, rather. For what I like in a neutral palette, this is perfect. It will get so much use out of it. It is currently limited edition, so keep your eye out on Amazon and Lorac's website. I don't know if it will eventually hit Sephora and Ulta, or if it will remain exclusive to Lorac and Amazon. That is kind of what was implied. Who knows if it'll stay that way. I can't really imagine that this could remain limited edition either. There's going to be too much fuss and too much hype around this. And I envision, and this is just my prediction, that Lorac will make this permanent. Or at the very least it will be sold at, you know, more retailers than it currently is. Or they'll have a second wave of it where everyone can get their hands on it. So I highly recommend it. $59. Just a great palette. So I just wanted to let you guys know how I feel about it. Hopefully you found this review helpful. It was very long-winded and chatty, but if you did enjoy, make sure to give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you have not already. If you want to check out my last video, it will be linked down below. I love you very much. I will see you soon. Bye!